Part 1. Raguna.
G'day everyone, Rune here, and this is a mini-series celebrating the release of the new Rune Factory game, a game series I adore. In this series, you play an amnesiac who just so happens to be part of a mysterious and at times mythical clan? Bloodline? Not really clear, known as the Earthmates. This group is known for their connection to the earth and all things living, which gives them supernatural farming abilities and a talent for befriending monsters that roam the world. And in the case of our main characters, a bit of a penchant for finding themselves in strange situations and getting amnesia. While some MCs like Micaiah from Rune Factory 3 do get some explanation as to who they were, others like Raguna and Alice/Ares get nothing aside from small hints. But what if you could uncover these mysterious pasts through something like a side quest? Why a side quest? Because the main plot is always about the bonds the MC forms with those they meet in the here and now, and what they're willing to go through to protect them, and vice versa. It's a story of found family, essentially. And adding the discovery of the MC's past would muddy that story. There's also the fact that some might not even care about the MC's past, so side quest. It's there if you want, but easily ignored if you're not interested. Now with that out of the way, let's start with the main character of the first ever Rune Factory game, Raguna. Like I said before, Raguna is one of the MCs we get very little with. But very little does not mean nothing. So let's look at what we do find out about him. In the final act of the game, we find out that Raguna was captured at some point by the main big bad of the first 4 games. Ethelbert, the Emperor of the Sechs Kingdom, and one of the biggest nutcases I have ever seen in fiction. The Sechs Kingdom knew that he was an Earthmate, which is why they kidnapped him and took his memories in order to trick him into playing into a super convoluted plan to get his Earthmate power so that they could summon one of the dragon gods to invade Norad. It's also hinted that Raguna might be the long-lost brother of Ivan, who is a prince of Norad and has disguised himself as a traveling merchant to look for his brother. But the characters also go out of their way to say that Ivan assuming that Raguna was his lost brother might have been a mistake, so no closure on that. It's also super confusing from a timeline standpoint. The idea that I have for the side quest that reveals Raguna's past is for Raguna to find the place where he'd been kept during his capture by the Sechs forces and have him explore it. I mean, the Sechs Empire already has a bunch of secret bases all over Norad. What's one more? It would also give a reason as to why and how they dumped Raguna right side of Cardia. This dungeon I envision as being a lot like the Charisse or Rigbath mazes. A post-game level dungeon that you can unlock earlier if you wish, has about 20 to 30 floors, with bosses on every 5th or so floor. Those bosses are a combination of powered-up versions of the bosses you faced in the main plot and bosses unique to this dungeon, with the final boss being the monster or machine that was used to take Raguna's memories. After each boss battle, Raguna gets a flashback to when he'd been here, and a little boy that had been trapped there with him. The very first flashback is of when the two met, with a young Raguna introducing himself to the crying boy who had just been brought in and making a joke about how they look so alike they could be twins. This draws out a laugh from the other boy, who introduces himself as Demir. Before we continue to the other flashbacks, I want to make note that both the models and the portrait art sprites for these two are exactly the same. This is intentional to make it difficult for the player to tell which is which, with the only indication of who's who being the text box with the name of who's speaking and which sprite is emoting at the time. But this won't always be reliable either, for reasons that will become clear later. There's only one way to tell for sure who is who, but in the interest of not spoiling the plot, I'll leave it there. The next flashback is of Demir wrapping an injury on Raguna's arm, one that was given to him by their captors as a punishment. As the two children talk, it's revealed that the punishment was meant for Demir. But Raguna had used their similar appearance to his advantage to take the punishment on himself. Demir asks him not to do that again as he doesn't want to see his only friend hurt. Raguna tells him that it's because they're friends that he wants to protect him. The next flashback is of Raguna and Demir sharing stories about their pasts. Raguna's family is full of Earthmates and he grew up on their farm. They even had a few monsters, like a buffamoon named Daisy and a woolly named Fuzzy. In return, Demir tells Raguna about how he had grown up in a large and fancy house with his older brother, but had never really felt like he fit in there. So one day he snuck out in order to explore the nearby forest that he'd always been drawn to, which is when he'd been kidnapped by Sechs spies. He didn't even know he was an Earthmate until he was brought here. The next flashback is of the boys discovering why they were kidnapped. In this flashback, the names on the text box have the characters' names, but with a question mark until the children address each other by name. This is because Demir and Raguna have adopted parts of each other's personalities, in part due to their bond, and in part due to how much they've been acting like each other in order to protect their friend from punishment, thus making it harder to tell them apart. This flashback ends with the boys making a plan to escape their captors before they can use them to destroy Narad. The penultimate flashback starts with the boys attempting to escape. For the majority of this flashback, the name on the text box will be with neither boy's name being shown. At some point before the flashback starts, one of the boys had taken an attack to the leg, forcing their friend to carry them. Taking shelter to hide, they try to think of what to do. The injured boy tells his friend that he needs to leave him behind. He's only slowing them down. His friend needs to escape. He needs to escape and get help. The other boy tells him that he's not leaving him here, but the first boy tells him that they have no choice. It's either this or they both get recaptured. Smiling, he tells his friend that he knows he can do it. He's his twin after all. The other boy reluctantly nods before standing up and running, leaving his friend behind. The flashback then skips to later, revealing the boy that had been hurt locked in his cell once again and wrapped in bandages. When Sechs Soldiers enter the cell, he glares at them, asking what they want. Laughing cruelly, the lead soldier tells the boy that he'd simply thought that he'd want to know what happened to his little friend. The soldier tells the boy that his friend is dead, having been killed by monsters after exiting the fortress. He says that it's a shame that it was the young prince that died instead of the farm boy, as the prince would have been a much more valuable hostage. The soldiers leave and the boy begins to cry, mourning the loss of Raguna. Now, observant players will be able to see this twist coming before it happens because of a little quirk of the flashbacks. That being that the portrait sprites for Raguna and Demir switch places each flashback. In the first one, Raguna is on the right while Demir is on the left, while in the second, Demir is on the right while Raguna is on the left. It's a small detail, but one that you can pick up on and that will hint at the twist without giving it away. The final flashback comes right before the battle with the final boss, in which it's revealed that the Sechs scientists had used Raguna's body as a power source or a conduit for a machine or monster that they were hoping to use to control Demir. But instead of controlling the now young man, it instead erased his memories. Deciding to make lemonade, they dump the amnesiac outside of Cardia. After defeating the final boss, Raguna, who now remembers his real name of Demir, is reunited with the ghost of his long-lost friend. Demir apologizes to the real Raguna for taking his name, for forgetting him, for letting him die. But Raguna tells him that there's nothing to forgive. What happened to him wasn't Demir's fault. The fact that when he lost his memories, he chose to take on his name shows just how much their friendship had meant to him. Raguna tells Demir to live his life as best he can, live a life without regret, and when he dies an old man, come and meet him in the afterlife and tell him all about it. He'll be waiting. But before that, there's someone else that he needs to see. Someone that's been waiting for far longer than he has. Smiling with tears in his eyes, Demir agrees, saying a final goodbye to his friend. The side quest ends with Demir walking up to Ivan at his usual spot and greeting him with a childhood nickname that he'd called him, one that he'd used in the flashbacks. After this, you can choose either to continue using the name Raguna or switch it to Demir. The dialogue between Raguna and Ivan also changes for the rest of the game, with Ivan calling Raguna brother and Raguna calling him by his nickname. And that's honestly all the changes I can give to this game because it's such an old game and there's so little leeway in what could be added. I mean, you get an event where Raguna and his wife have a child, but the kid disappears and is never mentioned again after the birth. Marvelous, for the love of all that is good, give this game the Rune Factory special treatment. It needs it. But that's it for this video. Join me next time as I talk about the possible identity and past of the Rune Factory 4 main characters. I'm Rune. See you next chapter.